The clock on my nightstand glowed 2:47 a.m. when Beth's phone buzzed against the marble surface. She didn't stir. Hadn't stirred much when I was around lately. I'm Jamie Parish, 38 years old, owner of Parish Industrial Electric, and apparently the kind of husband whose wife gets text messages at 3 in the morning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The phone buzzed again, then again. I rolled over, studying Beth's sleeping face in the dim light filtering through our bedroom curtains. 12 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a house worth more than most people make in a decade, and here I was, wide awake, listening to her phone receive messages from someone who clearly didn't respect normal sleeping hours. "Honey," I whispered, shaking her shoulder gently. "Your phone." She mumbled something incoherent and turned away from me, pulling the Egyptian cotton sheets up to her chin. The phone buzzed a 4th time. I reached across her and grabbed the device. The screen lit up, showing 3 messages from JN and 1 from Mary Work. The preview text from JN made my stomach drop. "Can't wait for tonight. Jamie will never..." The message cut off there, but I'd seen enough. My hands trembled as I held the phone, staring at those words. Jamie will never what? Find out? Suspect? Matter? I glanced at Beth again. She was sleeping peacefully, her blonde hair spread across the pillow like she was posing for a magazine. Beautiful, successful, the kind of woman other men envied me for marrying, the kind of woman who apparently received late-night messages from someone with the initials JN. My brother Jonathan came to mind immediately. John, JN, my older brother, my business partner, the charming one who'd always gotten everything he wanted while I worked twice as hard for half the recognition. I slipped out of bed and padded barefoot to our walk-in closet, Beth's phone still in my hand. The passcode screen appeared when I tried to open it. I tried her birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary. Nothing. Then, on a hunch that made my chest tight, I tried Jonathan's birthday. The phone unlocked. What I found in the next 10 minutes changed everything. Messages going back months, photos I wish I'd never seen, plans made behind my back, jokes at my expense, my wife and my brother laughing about my boring life, my predictable routines, my old-fashioned values. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how long it had been going on, how stupid I'd been. How many times I'd defended Beth when my sister Connie suggested she seemed distant. How many times I'd covered for John when he missed important business meetings. I scrolled through message after message, each one a small knife twist. Beth complaining about our stale marriage. John reassuring her that soon they'd be together for real. Plans to meet at the Riverside Hotel, discussions about how to handle the Jamie problem. The Jamie problem. That's what I'd become in my own life. I heard Beth shifting in bed and quickly closed the phone, setting it back on her nightstand. But as I climbed back under the covers, something else nagged at me. Mary Work had also texted. Mary, Beth's best friend from the real estate investment firm where Beth worked as HR director. Mary, who'd been to our house dozens of times, who'd babysat our daughters, who'd consoled me when I worried about Beth's late nights at the office. Mary was in on it too. I lay there until dawn, staring at the ceiling, listening to Beth's steady breathing and planning. Because if there's one thing 20 years in the electrical contracting business teaches you, it's that every system has vulnerabilities. Every circuit has a breaking point. Every fault line, when pressure builds up enough, eventually gives way. And I was done being the Jamie problem. When Beth's alarm went off at 6:30, she rolled over and smiled at me. The same smile she'd been giving me for 12 years, the one I'd thought meant she loved me. Now I knew better. "Morning, honey," she said, stretching like a cat. "Sleep well?" "Like a baby," I replied, matching her smile with one of my own. "You?" "Oh, you know me. Out like a light. She reached for her phone, checking it quickly before setting it aside. Big day today. That Henderson project is finally moving forward. The Henderson project. I'd heard her mention it before, always with the same secretive tone. Now I wondered if Henderson was even a real client, or just another code word for her afternoon meetings with my brother. That's great, honey. Really great. I sat up, stretching my arms above my head. You know what? I think I'll stop by the office early today, get a jump on those Riverside contracts. Her smile faltered for just a second. The Riverside contracts? Yeah, John mentioned them yesterday, said we might need to do some site visits this week. I watched her face carefully. Probably spend some time at that new hotel they're wiring. Beth's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. Oh, right. Well, you boys have fun with that. Boys. She called us boys, like we were children playing games instead of grown men running a multi-million-dollar business, instead of her husband and her lover. After Beth left for work, I sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee from a mug that read, World's Best Dad, a Father's Day gift from my daughters, Emma and Sophie, ages 10 and 8. They were still asleep upstairs, innocent and unaware that their world was about to change. I pulled out my own phone and called my foreman, Nate Rivers. Nate had been with Parish Industrial for 15 years, since back when my father ran the company. He was loyal, street smart, and had a talent for finding out things people didn't want found out. Boss? Nate's gravelly voice answered on the second ring. Kind of early, even for you. I need you to do something for me, Nate. Something unofficial. A pause. What kind of unofficial? The kind where you follow someone and tell me where they go, who they meet, what they do. Another pause. Longer this time. This about Mrs. Parish? Nate was sharper than most people gave him credit for. What makes you ask that? Boss, I've been watching you for 15 years. I know when something's eating at you, and I know when a woman starts staying late at the office every night, it ain't usually about work. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of having my suspicions confirmed by someone else. Can you do it? Consider it done, but boss, whatever you're planning, just remember, some bridges, once you burn them, there's no going back. Maybe that's the point, Nate. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my kitchen, looking around at the life Beth and I had built together, the granite countertops she'd insisted on, the custom cabinets I'd installed myself, the family photos covering the refrigerator, all of us smiling and happy and completely fake. My phone rang. John's name appeared on the screen. Little brother! His voice was too cheerful, too forced. How's the morning treating you? Can't complain. You? Oh, you know me, living the dream. He laughed, and I wondered how many times I'd heard that laugh while he was planning to destroy my life. Hey, I was thinking we should grab lunch today. Catch up on some business stuff. Business stuff. Right. Sure, John. Where did you have in mind? How about that place downtown, near the Riverside Hotel? My grip tightened on the phone. Perfect. See you there. After I hung up, I realized something had shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, the betrayal still burned, but underneath it all was something else, something cold and calculating and patient. I'd spent my whole life being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who cleaned up other people's messes. I'd let John take credit for my ideas, let him charm clients while I did the actual work, let him be the face of the company while I handled the details that actually mattered. And Beth, beautiful, ambitious Beth, had looked at both of us and chosen him. Chosen the flash over the substance, the charm over the character, the easy smile over the steady hand. Well, they deserved each other, and they were going to get exactly what they deserved. I went upstairs to wake up Emma and Sophie, kissing their foreheads and helping them get ready for school like I did every morning. They chattered about their friends and their classes and their plans for the weekend, and I listened to every word, storing up these moments before everything changed. Because Nate was right. Some bridges, once burned, there's no going back. But sometimes, when the bridge is rotten and the foundation is cracked and the whole structure is ready to collapse anyway, the only sensible thing to do is light the match yourself and make sure you're standing on the right side when it all comes down. Lunch with John was exactly what I expected, a performance. He sat across from me at Romano's, gesticulating with his fork as he talked about expansion plans and new contracts, his expensive watch catching the light every time he moved his hands. Everything about my brother was expensive these days. The watch, the suit, the car parked outside, all paid for with money from our family business, the one our father had built from nothing and left to both of us. The Riverside project is going to be huge, Jamie. Huge. John leaned forward, his eyes bright with enthusiasm that I now knew was probably about something else entirely. We're talking about wiring that entire new hotel complex, plus the shopping center they're planning next door. Sounds promising, I said, cutting into my sandwich. You've been spending a lot of time on site surveys lately. Well, you know how it is. These big clients need hand-holding, FaceTime. They want to see that we're committed. He grinned. Beth mentioned you might want to come along on some of the site visits. Beth mentioned. Of course she did. I wondered what else Beth had mentioned to my brother during their intimate conversations. That's thoughtful of her, I replied, though I'm surprised you two talk about work so much. John's smile flickered. Oh, you know, she stops by the office sometimes when you're out on jobs. We chat about this and that. This and that. I nodded slowly. She's always been friendly. Yeah, Beth's great. You're a lucky man, little brother. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Lucky. Right. My phone buzzed with a text from Nate. Package delivered to your office, private. Excuse me, I told John. Work emergency. I need to head back. No problem. I'll grab the check. John was already reaching for his wallet, probably eager to get back to whatever afternoon plans he had. Plans that likely involved my wife. Thanks. And John, we should do this more often. Really catch up. Absolutely. Family's important, right? Family. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Back at Parish Industrial Electric, I found Nate waiting in my office with a manila envelope and a grim expression. Our offices were located in a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town. Nothing fancy, but functional. The kind of place where real work got done, unlike the glass and steel towers where Beth spent her days. You're not going to like this, boss, Nate said, closing the door behind me. I already don't like it. Show me what you found. Nate opened the envelope and spread out a series of photographs across my desk. Time-stamped images of Beth and John entering the Riverside Hotel together. Beth's car parked next to John's at a restaurant across town. The two of them walking hand in hand through a park where they thought no one would recognize them. How long? I asked. Based on what I could track today, at least 6 months, probably longer. Nate sat down across from me. Boss, there's more. He pulled out another set of photos. Beth and Mary, her friend from work, sitting in Beth's car in what looked like an intense conversation. Mary handing Beth what appeared to be documents. Your wife's friend has been helping, Nate explained. Covering for her at work, providing alibis, probably feeding her information about your schedule. I studied the photos, feeling that cold calculation growing stronger inside me. What kind of information? The kind that would help someone know when you'd be out of town, when you'd be working late, when you'd be home early. Nate leaned back in his chair. Boss, I think they're planning something bigger than just an affair. What do you mean? Nate pulled out a final photograph. Beth and John sitting in a lawyer's office, papers spread out between them. I followed them yesterday afternoon. That's Harrison, Mitchell and Associates, divorce lawyers, the expensive kind. The pieces clicked into place. Beth's recent interest in our financial records. John's questions about the business structure. the way both of them had been pushing me to update our wills and insurance policies. "They're not just having an affair," I said quietly. "They're planning to take everything." "Looks that way. And with your wife working in HR, she knows exactly how to make you look bad in court. Harassment claims, hostile work environment, maybe even some creative accounting to make it look like you've been skimming from the business." I sat back in my chair, staring at the photographs. 12 years of marriage, 20 years of partnership with my brother, and it all came down to this: a carefully orchestrated plan to destroy me and take everything I'd worked for. "There's something else, boss." Nate's voice was gentler now. "I made some calls. Beth's been telling people around town that you've been difficult at home, controlling, angry. She's been laying groundwork, making you look like the bad guy before she even files papers." Controlling. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I work 60 hours a week to pay for her lifestyle. I take care of the kids when she's working late, and I'm controlling." "That's not all. She's been talking to Emma and Sophie too, asking them questions about how Daddy acts when Mommy's not around, whether Daddy ever gets mad, whether they'd rather live with Mommy or Daddy if something happened." The coldness inside me crystallized into something harder. "She's using my daughters against me. I'm sorry, boss. I really am." I gathered up the photographs and slid them back into the envelope. "Don't be sorry, Nate. Be ready." "Ready for what?" "War." I looked up at him. "Because that's what this is. They want to destroy me? Fine. But they picked the wrong man to underestimate." Nate grinned, the first genuine smile I'd seen all day. "What do you need me to do?" "First, I need you to document everything. Every meeting, every lie, every move they make. I want a paper trail that would make the IRS jealous." "Done." "Second, I need you to reach out to Carl Robertson. Tell him I want to have dinner this week. Somewhere private." Carl Robertson was our family's longtime attorney and my father's old friend. More importantly, he was the one person who knew every detail of how Parish Industrial Electric was actually structured, including some provisions my father had put in place that John had never bothered to read carefully. "And third? Third, I need you to help me understand something. If someone wanted to hurt my family's business, what would be the best way to do it?" Nate raised an eyebrow. "You planning to sabotage your own company?" "No. But I'm planning to make sure the right person ends up controlling it when this is all over." After Nate left, I sat alone in my office, looking out at the warehouse floor where my employees were busy with their daily work. Good people, most of them. People who depended on Parish Industrial Electric for their livelihoods. People who deserved better than to be pawns in my brother's game. My phone rang. Beth's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, honey," I answered, keeping my voice light and normal. "Hi, how was lunch with John?" "Good. He's excited about the Riverside project." "Oh, that's wonderful. He works so hard on these big clients." There was something in her voice. Pride, maybe. The kind of pride she used to have when talking about my accomplishments. "He does. Very dedicated." I paused. "Hey, I was thinking we should have him over for dinner this weekend. Maybe invite Mary too. Make it a real family gathering." Silence on the other end. Then, "That sounds nice, but you know how busy everyone is." "I'm sure they can make time. Family's important, right?" "Right, of course. I'll check with them." "Great. Oh, and Beth, I love you." Another pause. "I love you too, Jamie." But we both knew she was lying. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and started making lists. Financial records to gather, legal documents to review, people to contact, strategies to consider. Because if John and Beth thought they were playing chess while I was playing checkers, they were about to learn something important about their opponent. I'd been building electrical systems for 20 years. I knew how to trace every wire, identify every connection, and find every weak point in even the most complex network. And a conspiracy, when you really looked at it, was just another kind of circuit. With the right pressure applied at the right points, Any circuit could be made to overload. The question wasn't whether I could bring down their carefully laid plans. The question was how spectacular I wanted the failure to be. Carl Robertson looked older than his 65 years as he sat across from me at Murphy's Steakhouse, but his eyes were still sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd been my father's attorney for 30 years and had handled the transition of Parish Industrial Electric when Dad passed 5 years ago. If anyone knew the ins and outs of our business structure, it was Carl. "Jamie, I have to ask," Carl said, cutting into his ribeye. "Why all the sudden interest in the corporate bylaws? You've never cared about the legal minutia before. Let's just say I'm developing an appreciation for details." I slid a manila folder across the table. "These are copies of everything Nate documented. I need you to tell me what my options are." Carl opened the folder and examined the photographs, his expression growing grimmer with each image. When he reached the pictures of Beth and John at the law office, he set down his fork entirely. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 6 months, maybe longer. They're planning to file for divorce and somehow cut me out of the business." I leaned forward. "But here's what I don't understand. John owns 49% of Parish Industrial Electric. I own 51%. How exactly do they think they can push me out?" Carl was quiet for a long moment, studying the photographs. "There are several ways, actually. If Beth can establish a pattern of erratic behavior, substance abuse, or financial impropriety, she could potentially get a court order freezing your assets during divorce proceedings. That would include your business shares. But I don't drink, I don't use substances, and I've never touched company money inappropriately. Doesn't matter if she can make it look convincing. And with her background in HR, she'd know exactly how to document a case." Carl closed the folder. "But there's something else. Something I think you've forgotten about." "What?" "Your father's partnership agreement included some very specific clauses about moral turpitude and conduct detrimental to the business. If one partner can prove the other has engaged in behavior that damages the company's reputation or financial standing—" I felt a cold smile spreading across my face. "The offending partner forfeits their shares." "Exactly. And adultery with a business partner's spouse would definitely qualify." Carl leaned back in his chair. "The question is, can you prove it in a way that would hold up legally?" "I can prove it. The question is whether I want to destroy John or just neutralize him." "What's the difference?" "Destroying him means he loses everything. His shares, his reputation, his future. Neutralizing him means he just loses his ability to hurt me." Carl studied my face carefully. "You know, your father always said you were the one with the real steel in your spine. John had the charm, but you had the backbone." "Dad said that?" "Many times. He worried about leaving the business to both of you, but he hoped you'd keep John in line." Carl signaled for the check. "I think he'd be proud of how you're handling this. By planning to destroy my own brother, by protecting what he built, by making sure the right person controls the legacy he left behind." When I got home that evening, Beth was in the kitchen, helping Emma with homework, while Sophie practiced piano in the living room. The picture of domestic tranquility, if you didn't know what I knew. "How was your day, honey?" Beth asked, not looking up from Emma's math worksheet. "Productive, very productive." I kissed the top of Emma's head. "How's the homework coming, sweetheart?" "It's hard, Daddy. I don't understand fractions. Here, let me show you." I sat down next to my daughter and started explaining how fractions worked, how you could break something whole into smaller pieces, and how sometimes those pieces didn't add up the way you expected them to. Beth watched us with an expression I couldn't quite read, guilt, maybe, or calculation. "I talked to Mary about this weekend," she said casually. "She's not sure she can make it to dinner." "That's too bad. What about John?" "He said he'd try, but he's got some client meetings that might run late." "Of course he did." "Well, maybe we can do it another time, when everyone's schedules align better." That night, after the girls were asleep, Beth and I sat in our living room, pretending to watch television. She was texting on her phone. The same phone I'd unlocked 3 nights ago, the one full of messages from my brother. "Beth," I said during a commercial break, "can I ask you something?" She looked up, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Of course. Are you happy? With us, I mean. With our marriage?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. That's an odd question, Jamie. Why? I just feel like we've been distant lately. Like we're living separate lives under the same roof." She set down her phone and turned to face me fully. "I think that's normal for couples who've been married as long as we have. We're both busy. We have responsibilities. Is there anything I could do differently to make you happier?" For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Her face softened and she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. But then her phone buzzed, and the moment passed. "You're a good husband, Jamie. A good father. I don't have any complaints." "No complaints. Just plans to destroy my life and take my children." "That's good to hear," I said, "because I love our family. I'd do anything to protect it." Something in my tone must have registered, because Beth's expression sharpened. "Protect it from what?" "From anything that might threaten it. Anyone who might want to hurt what we've built together." We stared at each other across the coffee table, and I could see her trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I suspected. The conversation felt like a chess match, each of us probing for weaknesses while trying not to reveal our own strategies. "I should get to bed," she said finally. "Early meeting tomorrow." "Another Henderson project meeting?" "Yes. It's complicated. Lots of moving parts. I'm sure you and John will figure it out. You two seem to work well together." Beth froze halfway to standing up. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that he speaks very highly of your input on the business side of things, says you have good insights." "Oh, right." She relaxed slightly. "Well, good night." "Good night, honey. Sweet dreams." After she went upstairs, I sat in the dark living room, thinking about everything Carl had told me. The moral turpitude clause, the evidence I'd need, the timeline for making my move. My phone buzzed with a text from Nate. "They're meeting tomorrow afternoon. Riverside Hotel, room 412. Thought you should know." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Thanks, time to end this." But first, I had one more call to make. I scrolled through my contacts and found my sister Connie's number. Connie was 2 years older than me, a successful attorney in her own right, and the one person in our family who'd never been charmed by John's smooth talk. "Jamie?" she answered on the second ring. "It's late. Everything okay?" "Connie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. What's going on?" "Have you ever suspected that Beth was cheating on me?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Oh, Jamie, I was wondering when you'd figure it out." "You knew?" "I suspected. The way she talked about John at family gatherings, the way she looked at him, the way she always seemed to know things about the business that you hadn't told her." Connie's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm sorry. I should have said something." "With John?" "I wasn't sure, but yes, I thought it might be John." I closed my eyes. "They're planning to divorce me and take the business." "Those idiots. Don't they realize how the partnership agreement is structured?" "Apparently not. Carl thinks I can invoke the moral turpitude clause." "You absolutely can. And Jamie, I think you should. Even if it destroys John?" "Especially if it destroys John. He's been riding your coattails his whole life, taking credit for your work, and now he's trying to steal your wife and your company." Connie's voice hardened. "Some people need to learn that actions have consequences." After I hung up with Connie, I went upstairs and stood outside my daughter's rooms, listening to them sleep. Emma was snoring softly, and Sophie was talking in her dreams about something involving unicorns and ice cream. They deserved better than this. Better than having their family torn apart by betrayal and greed. Better than being used as weapons in their mother's war against their father. I was going to make sure they got better. Tomorrow, Beth and John would meet at the Riverside Hotel, probably to celebrate how well their plan was progressing. They'd congratulate themselves on how cleverly they'd manipulated the situation, how perfectly they'd positioned themselves to take everything I'd worked for. They had no idea that their celebration was about to become their funeral. Not literally, of course. I wasn't planning to hurt anyone physically, but metaphorically, professionally, financially. Well, some lessons could only be learned the hard way, and class was about to begin. The next afternoon, I sat in my truck across the street from the Riverside Hotel, watching the entrance through binoculars. At exactly 2:15 p.m., Beth's silver BMW pulled into the parking lot. She was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the one she claimed was too fancy for everyday wear. Apparently, afternoons with my brother didn't qualify as every day. At 2:20, John's black Mercedes arrived. He parked 3 spaces away from Beth's car, close enough to be convenient, far enough apart to maintain the illusion that they weren't together. They'd done this before. Many times. I watched them enter the hotel separately, 5 minutes apart, both checking their phones as they walked. Coordinated, professional, like they were executing a business plan instead of destroying a family. My phone rang. Carl Robertson. Jamie, I've been reviewing the partnership documents more carefully. Carl's voice was tense. There's something else you need to know. What? The moral turpitude clause has a time limit. If you know about misconduct and don't act within 60 days, you forfeit your right to invoke it. My grip tightened on the phone. How long have I got? Based on when these photographs were taken, maybe 2 weeks, possibly less. That's not much time. No, it's not. But Jamie, there's something else. I did some digging into Beth's recent activities. She's been very busy. What kind of busy? The kind where she's been meeting with forensic accountants, private investigators, and at least 3 different divorce attorneys. This isn't just an affair, it's a coordinated campaign. I felt that familiar, cold calculation settling over me. What else? She's been documenting everything. Your work schedule, your interactions with employees, your financial decisions. She's building a case that you're an unfit business partner and an unstable husband. Based on what evidence? That's the thing. She doesn't need real evidence. She just needs to create enough doubt to freeze your assets and force you into a settlement. By the time the truth comes out, they'll have control of the business and custody of your daughters. I stared at the hotel entrance, imagining Beth and John upstairs, probably toasting their own cleverness. Carl, I need you to prepare the moral turpitude paperwork. All of it. I want to be ready to file the moment I have what I need. Jamie, are you sure about this? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. John will lose everything. John made his choice. Now I'm making mine. After I hung up with Carl, I called Nate. Boss? Are you in position? Yeah, I'm in the hotel lobby. Got a clear view of the elevators and the bar area. Good. I need you to go to room 412 in exactly 10 minutes. Knock on the door and tell them there's been a water leak in the room below, and hotel maintenance needs to check their bathroom. That'll get them out of the room? Long enough for what I need to do. Boss, what exactly are you planning? Insurance, I said. The kind that pays out when people make really stupid decisions. I ended the call and walked across the street to the hotel. The lobby was busy with afternoon check-ins and business meetings. I nodded to the desk clerk and walked confidently toward the elevators, like I belonged there. Room 412 was at the end of a long hallway. I could hear voices inside, Beth's laugh, John's deeper chuckle. They sounded happy, relaxed, completely unaware that their world was about to change. I waited around the corner until I heard Nate's knock and his explanation about the water leak. The door opened, and I heard Beth's voice. How long will this take? Just a few minutes, ma'am. We'll be as quick as possible. Footsteps in the hallway. Beth and John walking toward the elevators, probably heading to the hotel bar to wait out the maintenance check. I gave them 30 seconds, then slipped into the room. It was a standard hotel suite, but they'd made themselves at home. John's jacket was draped over a chair. Beth's purse was on the dresser. The bed was, well, obviously used. But what I was really looking for was on the small desk by the window, Beth's laptop, open and unlocked, with what appeared to be a document titled Parish Divorce Strategy, displayed on the screen. I plugged in the USB drive I'd brought and began copying files: financial records, email correspondence, meeting notes, legal documents. Everything Beth had been using to build her case against me. But the real treasure was in her email. Messages to her divorce attorney detailing exactly how she planned to portray me as an unfit husband and business partner. Communications with a private investigator she'd hired to find dirt on me. And most damning of all, email exchanges with John discussing how to manipulate the business finances to make it look like I'd been embezzling. They weren't just planning to divorce me, they were planning to frame me. I was so focused on copying files that I almost missed the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I quickly unplugged the USB drive and moved to the window, pretending to examine the view. The door opened. Beth entered first, followed by John. "Oh!" Beth stopped short when she saw me. "Jamie, what are you doing here?" I turned around slowly, letting them see the expression on my face. "Hello, Beth." "John." John's face went through several color changes before settling on pale gray. "Jamie, this isn't... We were just... having a business meeting?" I gestured around the hotel room. "In a place like this? How very... intimate of you." Beth's shock was giving way to anger. "How dare you follow me? How dare you spy on me?" "Spy on you?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Beth, you're my wife. This is my brother. I'm not spying. I'm just finally paying attention." "Jamie, listen." John started forward, his hands raised like he was approaching a dangerous animal. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like my wife and my business partner have been having an affair while planning to destroy my life." I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo from Nate's surveillance. "Want to explain this one?" Beth stared at the photo, her face cycling through emotions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, defiance. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth? Here's the truth. I haven't been happy in this marriage for years. You're boring, Jamie. Predictable. Safe. I wanted more." "More like my brother?" "John understands me. He appreciates me. He doesn't take me for granted." John was nodding along, apparently finding his courage. "Jamie, we didn't plan for this to happen. It just developed naturally." "Naturally?" I nodded thoughtfully. "And the meetings with divorce lawyers, the private investigators, the forensic accountants, that all developed naturally too?" Both of them went very still. "That's right. I know about all of it. The strategy documents, the plans to frame me for embezzlement, the custody battle you're preparing." I stepped closer to them. "Did you really think I was stupid enough not to figure it out eventually?" Beth's defiance crumbled. "Jamie, please. Let's talk about this reasonably. We're all adults here." "Adults." I repeated the word like it tasted bad. Adults don't destroy families for personal gain. Adults don't lie to children about their parents. Adults don't steal from their own business partners. "We weren't stealing," John protested. "We were just repositioning assets." Repositioning. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for the first time in years. Weak, selfish, entitled. "You know what, John? You're right. You weren't stealing. You were trying to steal. There's a difference." "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in days. "It means you picked the wrong mark. Both of you." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, And Beth? You might want to call your divorce attorney. Tell him there's been a change in circumstances. What kind of change? The kind where you're not going to get what you were expecting. I left them standing there, probably trying to figure out how much I knew and what I planned to do about it. They'd find out soon enough. In the elevator, I called Carl Robertson. "It's time," I said, when he answered. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "I'll file the paperwork first thing in the morning." "Good. And Carl? Make sure you include everything. I want this to be thorough." "It will be. Jamie, are you prepared for the fallout? This is going to get ugly." I thought about Emma and Sophie, asleep in their beds, trusting their parents to protect them. I thought about the employees at Parish Industrial Electric, depending on the company for their livelihoods. I thought about my father, who'd built something meaningful and left it in the hands of his sons. "Let it get ugly," I said. "Some messes need to be cleaned up, no matter how much work it takes." When I got home, Beth's car wasn't in the driveway. She was probably still at the hotel with John, trying to figure out their next move. Good. That gave me time to prepare. I went upstairs and checked on Emma and Sophie. They were both sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that their world was about to change. I kissed their foreheads and whispered that I loved them. Then I went to my home office and began making calls. To Connie, to update her on what had happened. To Nate, to thank him for his help and warn him that things were about to get complicated at work. To my accountant, to make sure all our business records were in order. And finally, to my daughter's school, to make sure that only I would be authorized to pick them up until further notice. Because if Beth thought she could use Emma and Sophie as leverage in whatever came next, she was about to learn otherwise. The war had begun. And unlike my opponents, I'd been preparing for battle my entire life. The next morning, I arrived at Parish Industrial Electric at 6 a.m. to find John's Mercedes already in the parking lot. He was waiting in my office, pacing like a caged animal, his usually perfect hair disheveled and his expensive suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "Jamie, we need to talk," he said the moment I walked through the door. "Good morning to you too, John." I hung up my jacket and sat down behind my desk, taking my time to get settled. "You look terrible. Rough night?" "Don't play games with me. Beth told me what you said at the hotel, about repositioning assets and picking the wrong mark." John stopped pacing and planted his hands on my desk. "What exactly do you think you know?" I opened my laptop and pulled up one of the files I'd copied from Beth's computer. "I know you've been having an affair with my wife for at least 6 months. I know you've been helping her build a case to divorce me and take custody of my daughters. And I know you've both been planning to manipulate the business finances to make it look like I've been stealing from the company." John's face went white. "You can't prove any of that." "Can I?" I turned the laptop screen toward him, showing him Beth's email to her divorce attorney detailing their strategy. "This is pretty comprehensive, John. Financial records, meeting notes, even a timeline for when you plan to make your move." John stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "But here's my favorite part," I continued, scrolling down to another email. "The one where Beth explains how you're going to use your position as business partner to claim I've been making unauthorized expenditures. Very creative, very thorough, very stupid." "Jamie, listen to me." "No, you listen to me." I stood up, and John instinctively stepped back. "For 20 years I've watched you coast on charm while I did the actual work. I've covered for your mistakes, cleaned up your messes, and let you take credit for my successes. I told myself it was because we were family. We are family. Family doesn't try to destroy each other, John. Family doesn't steal from each other. And family definitely doesn't sleep with each other's wives." John's face flushed red. "Beth came to me, Jamie. She was unhappy. She felt neglected. I was just trying to be supportive." "Supportive." I laughed. "Is that what you call it? How supportive were you when you helped her plan to frame me for embezzlement? We weren't going to frame you. We were just going to present the facts in a way that showed your judgment had been compromised. My judgment. I walked around the desk until I was standing directly in front of my brother. John, do you remember what Dad used to say about the partnership agreement? What does that have to do with anything? He said he put in safeguards to protect the business from people who might try to use it for personal gain. People who might engage in conduct detrimental to the company's reputation or financial standing. John's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Jamie, you can't be serious. I'm very serious. In fact, I'm filing the paperwork this morning. What paperwork? The moral turpitude clause, John. The one that says if a business partner engages in behavior that damages the company or violates basic ethical standards, they forfeit their shares. John grabbed the edge of my desk for support. You can't do that. I own 49% of this company. You owned 49%. Past tense. I walked back around to my chair and sat down. As of this morning, you own 0%, and as of right now, you're fired. You can't fire me. I'm a partner. Not anymore. And yes, I can fire you. In fact, I'm calling security to escort you out. As if on cue, Nate appeared in the doorway with two of our largest electricians. Everything okay in here, boss? Everything's fine, Nate. John was just leaving, permanently. John looked around the room, at me, at Nate, at the two men who were clearly there to remove him if necessary. This is insane, Jamie. You're destroying our family over a misunderstanding. I'm protecting our family from someone who was trying to destroy it. I picked up my phone. You have 10 minutes to clean out your office. After that, security will escort you off the property. What about my car? My personal belongings? Your car can stay in the parking lot until you arrange to have it picked up. Your personal belongings will be boxed up and delivered to whatever address you provide. I looked at him steadily. But you are not welcome in this building anymore. John stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out if I was bluffing. When he realized I wasn't, his expression shifted from shock to anger to something that looked almost like respect. You know what, little brother? I underestimated you. Yes, you did. So did Beth. It was a costly mistake. After John left, escorted by Nate and the two electricians, I called an all-hands meeting. The entire Parish Industrial Electric workforce, 43 employees, gathered in the main warehouse area. These were good people, skilled tradesmen and women who'd built their careers with our company. They deserved to know what was happening. I want to address some rumors that might be circulating, I began, standing on a makeshift platform so everyone could see me. As of this morning, John Parish is no longer associated with this company in any capacity. He has forfeited his ownership stake and has been terminated from his position. A murmur went through the crowd. John had been popular with some of the employees, particularly the younger ones who were impressed by his expensive clothes and smooth talk. I know some of you are probably wondering what this means for your jobs, for the company's future. Let me be clear. Parish Industrial Electric is financially sound. We have a full project schedule for the next 18 months, and no one's position is in jeopardy because of this change. More murmurs, but these sounded relieved. What happened between John and me was personal, but it affected the business. I won't go into details, but I will say this. I will not tolerate anyone, family or otherwise, who tries to use this company for personal gain at the expense of our employees or our reputation. One of the senior electricians, a man named Pete, who'd been with us for 12 years, raised his hand. Boss, what about the Riverside project? John was handling most of that. I'll be taking over the Riverside project personally. In fact, I'll be taking a more hands-on role in all our major contracts going forward. I looked around at the faces in the crowd. This company was built by people who believed in doing good work for fair pay. That's not going to change. After the meeting, I spent the rest of the morning dealing with the practical aspects of removing John from the business, changing passwords, updating bank signature cards, notifying clients and vendors. It was tedious work, but necessary. At noon, my phone rang. Beth. Jamie, what have you done? Her voice was shrill, panicked. I've protected my business and my family. How's your day going? John called me. He said you fired him. He said you're claiming he forfeited his shares. That's correct. You can't do that. Actually, I can. And I did. It's all perfectly legal, Beth. Carl Robertson made sure of that. Silence on the other end. Then, we need to talk. No, we don't. Jamie, please, let's be reasonable about this. We can work something out. The time for working things out was before you decided to have an affair with my brother and plot to destroy my life. I never plotted to destroy your life. Really? Because I have emails suggesting otherwise. Very detailed emails. Another silence. How did you... Never mind. Jamie, I'm coming home. We need to discuss this like adults. Don't bother, I won't be there. What do you mean? I mean I'm picking up Emma and Sophie from school, and we're going to stay somewhere else for a while. Somewhere you can't use them as leverage in whatever scheme you're cooking up next. You can't take my children. They're our children, Beth, and I'm their father. I have every right to protect them from a situation that's about to become very unpleasant. Jamie, if you take those girls, I'll call the police. I'll have you arrested for kidnapping. No, you won't, because that would require explaining to the police why your husband felt the need to protect his children from their mother. Are you really prepared for that conversation? I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. This isn't over, Jamie. You're right, it's not. But it's going to end very differently than you planned. After I hung up, I called Connie. How did it go? She asked. John's out. The moral turpitude clause worked exactly like Carl said it would. And Beth? Panicking, she's starting to realize that her carefully laid plans have fallen apart. What's your next move? I'm taking the girls somewhere safe while I figure out the divorce strategy. Carl's already filed papers, but I want to make sure Emma and Sophie are protected from whatever Beth tries next. Smart. Jamie, I'm proud of you. You handled this exactly right. Did I? Sometimes I feel like I'm becoming someone I don't recognize. You're becoming someone who fights back. There's a difference. That afternoon, I picked up Emma and Sophie from school and took them to a hotel across town. I'd reserved a 2-bedroom suite and stocked it with their favorite snacks, games, and movies. Daddy, why aren't we going home? Sophie asked as we settled into the suite. Because Mommy and Daddy need to have some grown-up conversations, and I want to make sure you two are somewhere fun and safe while we figure things out. Are you and Mommy getting divorced? Emma, my older daughter, was too perceptive for her own good. I sat down on the couch between them. Emma, Sophie, I need you both to listen to me very carefully. Mommy and I are having some problems, and yes, we might get divorced. But that doesn't change how much we both love you, and it doesn't mean anything bad is going to happen to you. Will we have to choose who to live with? Sophie's eyes were filling with tears. I hope not, sweetheart. I hope we can work out something where you get to spend time with both of us. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't going to be that simple. Beth had already shown she was willing to use our daughters as weapons. The next few weeks were going to be the fight of my life. The difference was, this time I was ready for battle, and I was going to win. 3 weeks later, I sat in Carl Robertson's office, reviewing the final settlement documents. Beth had fought hard, hiring the most expensive divorce attorney in the city, and making increasingly desperate attempts to regain the upper hand. But every move she made only strengthened my position. She's agreed to the terms? I asked, flipping through the pages. She didn't have much choice, Carl replied. Once we presented evidence of the affair, the conspiracy to defraud the business, and her attempts to manipulate the children, her attorney advised her to take the deal. The deal was better than I'd dared hope for. I kept the house, the business, and primary custody of Emma and Sophie. Beth got her car, her personal belongings, and enough money to start over somewhere else. What she didn't get was any claim to Parish Industrial Electric or any ongoing financial support beyond child support. "What about John?" I asked. "He's been remarkably quiet since you filed the restraining order. I think losing his shares in the company was enough of a wake-up call." The restraining order had been necessary after John showed up at my house drunk and belligerent, demanding that I be reasonable about the business. Nate and I had convinced him to leave without calling the police, but I'd filed the paperwork the next day. John Parish was no longer welcome anywhere near me, my family, or my business. "There is one more thing," Carl said, pulling out another document. "Beth's attorney wants to include a non-disclosure clause. She doesn't want the details of the affair or the business conspiracy to become public record." I considered this. On one hand, keeping the details private would protect Emma and Sophie from having their mother's mistakes become town gossip. On the other hand, there was something appealing about making sure everyone knew exactly what Beth and John had tried to do. "What do you recommend?" "Take the NDA. You've already won everything that matters. This just ensures your daughters don't have to deal with the fallout when they're older." He was right. This had never been about public humiliation. It had been about protecting what mattered most. "Fine, I'll sign it." That afternoon, I drove to the Riverside Hotel for the final meeting. Beth was waiting in the lobby with her attorney, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Wells, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Beth looked terrible. She'd lost weight, her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her typical designer outfits. The stress of the last 3 weeks had aged her years. "Jamie," she said as I approached with Carl. "Beth." We sat at a table in the hotel's restaurant, the same place where she and John had probably celebrated their clever plan to destroy me. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. "My client has agreed to the terms," Patricia Wells said, sliding the documents across the table. "But she'd like to make a personal statement before we finalize everything." I looked at Carl, who nodded. "Go ahead." Beth cleared her throat and looked directly at me. "Jamie, I want you to know that I never intended for things to go this far. When we started spending time together, it was just supposed to be emotional support. I was feeling neglected in our marriage, and he was there to listen." "Emotional support," I repeated. "Is that what you call planning to frame me for embezzlement?" Her face flushed. "That was John's idea. He said we needed leverage to ensure a fair settlement. I went along with it, but I never really intended to follow through." "But you did follow through, Beth. You hired investigators, met with forensic accountants, and documented everything you could think of to use against me." I know, and I'm sorry. I was scared and confused, and I made terrible decisions." I studied her face, looking for any sign that she actually meant what she was saying. What I saw was regret, not for what she'd done, but for getting caught. "Are you sorry for having the affair, Beth? Or are you sorry that it didn't work out the way you planned?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry for hurting you. And I'm sorry for hurting Emma and Sophie." It wasn't really an answer, but it was probably the best I was going to get. "What about John?" I asked. "Are you two still together?" Beth's expression hardened. "John has made it clear that he's not interested in a relationship now that the business opportunity has disappeared." Of course he hadn't. John had never been interested in Beth herself, just in what she could help him take from me. Now that the plan had failed and he'd lost his shares in Parish Industrial Electric, she was no longer useful to him. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I actually meant it, not because I felt bad for Beth, but because it confirmed everything I'd suspected about my brother's character. We signed the papers in silence. Beth's hand shook as she wrote her signature, and I found myself remembering the day we'd signed our marriage certificate 15 years ago. She'd been radiant then, laughing and making jokes about becoming Mrs. Parish. Now she looked like she was signing her own surrender. There's one more thing, I said as we prepared to leave. I want you to know that Emma and Sophie will always be welcome to have a relationship with you. I won't try to turn them against you or keep them from seeing you. Beth's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. But if you ever try to manipulate them or use them against me again, that will change. Do you understand? She nodded. I understand. As we walked out of the hotel, Carl put his hand on my shoulder. How do you feel? Tired, I said honestly, but relieved. Any regrets? I thought about it as we stood in the parking lot, watching Beth and her attorney drive away. Did I regret destroying my brother's career and ending my marriage? Did I regret the pain this would cause Emma and Sophie? Did I regret becoming the kind of man who could orchestrate such complete and systematic revenge? No, I said finally. No regrets. That evening, I picked up Emma and Sophie from the after-school program where they'd been staying while I handled the legal proceedings. They climbed into my truck, chattering about their day, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe normally. Daddy, are we going home now? Sophie asked as I buckled her seatbelt. Yes, sweetheart. We're going home. Is Mommy going to be there? No, Sophie. Mommy is going to live somewhere else now, but you'll still get to see her on weekends and holidays. Emma, wise beyond her 10 years, looked at me seriously. Are you okay, Daddy? I'm okay, Emma. Better than okay, actually. And I was. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the Jamie who'd been manipulated and betrayed, but the Jamie who'd built a successful business from the ground up. The Jamie who protected what mattered most. As we drove home, I thought about what came next. Parish Industrial Electric was stronger than ever, with new contracts coming in and a workforce that respected the changes I'd made. Emma and Sophie would adjust to the new normal, and I'd make sure they had everything they needed to thrive. And Beth and John? They'd have to live with the consequences of their choices. Beth would rebuild her life somewhere else, hopefully learning from her mistakes. John would have to find a new career, one where his charm couldn't mask his lack of character. As for me, I'd learned something important about myself over the past few weeks. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, more ruthless when necessary, and absolutely committed to protecting what I'd built. Some people might call what I'd done excessive. They might say I should have tried counseling or mediation or some other attempt to save my marriage and preserve my relationship with my brother. But those people had never been betrayed by the two people they trusted most in the world. They'd never had to watch their children being used as pawns in someone else's game. They'd never had to fight for everything they'd worked for their entire lives. I had fought, and I had won. Not just in court, but in every way that mattered. The fault line had finally shifted, and when the dust settled, I was still standing. That was enough.